Here's a sentence that sounds wrong. For years now, Amazon's website has been one of the least profitable parts of the company. And it's been true since before most people had ever heard of AWS. You think you understand Amazon. Click a button. Pay a price. A box shows up 2 days later. Same business model as every store since the cash register was invented. Sell something, make money on the sale. Sit with this number for a second. $716.9 billion. That's what Amazon made in 2025. Now, here's the part that breaks the model. Its actual retail business, the website, the warehouses, the box on your porch, kept just $34.4 billion of that as profit. A 5.8% margin, respectable, forgettable, and about to look like a rounding error, because somewhere most customers never click. A warehouse full of rented servers called Amazon Web Services, AWS, made $45.6 billion in profit. AWS is a fifth of Amazon's revenue. It made more money than the other 4/5 of the company combined. You're not shopping at a retailer that also runs a cloud business. You're renting servers from a cloud company that also happens to sell you paper towels. Over the next 20 minutes, we're taking Amazon apart, piece by piece, using nothing but the company's own numbers. We'll build the machine first, the warehouses, the trucks, and the marketplace of outside sellers who quietly took over the site. Then we follow the money, the fees, the ads, the subscriptions, and the cloud division propping up the whole thing. And then the crack running underneath all of it, a spending spree so big it erased 71% of Amazon's cash in a single year. In the same year, profit hit a record high. Along the way, we're going to follow one small business owner in Ohio whose entire livelihood runs through this machine, start to finish, and find out what actually happens to someone standing underneath it. By the end, everything store is going to sound like the wrong name entirely. Amazon didn't start as a marketplace. It started in 1994 as an online bookstore with no inventory. Jeff Bezos sourced books from distributors and shipped them only after you paid. Low risk, thin margins, almost no fixed cost. Then, Amazon decided to become the everything store. And selling everything meant owning everything. Warehouses, trucks, sorting centers, delivery vans, and the software to route all of it. By 2025, that had gotten genuinely absurd. Amazon spent $102.7 billion just moving packages that year. Not warehouses, not payroll, just trucks, planes, and delivery vans. That's roughly double Nike's entire global revenue, spent purely on shipping, on a company that makes nothing. Here's the part most people never think about. Amazon isn't just racing Walmart on price anymore. It's just as much racing FedEx and UPS on speed. Building its own delivery network was the only way to control both. Every time you tap Buy Now and expect a box tomorrow, you're triggering a chain of trucks and sorting centers that took 2 decades and hundreds of billions of dollars to build. Assets that depreciate, that need constant reinvestment, that earn Amazon nothing if a truck drives back to the warehouse half empty. Amazon now employs well over 1 million people just to keep that network running, plus an army of contractors on top, Amazon Flex drivers, delivery service partners, a workforce Amazon has continued to back with billions in additional funding. Retail's razor-thin margins aren't bad luck. They're the mathematical price of being the fastest shipper on earth while also being the cheapest. While Amazon was burying cash into trucks, it made a second bet. Starting around 2006, it began renting out its own internal computing infrastructure to other companies. That became Amazon Web Services. At the time, this looked like a distraction, a side project for engineers. Here's the thing, you've probably never rented a server from Amazon in your life, and you've funded this business anyway. Every Netflix show you've binged runs on Amazon's servers behind the scenes. 2 decades later, AWS is a $128.7 billion business on its own, bigger than Coca-Cola and bigger than Nike, running at a 35% profit margin, 6 times fatter than Amazon's own retail business. Why? Fixed costs. Once Amazon builds a data center, adding one more customer costs almost nothing. No truck, no warehouse slot, no delivery driver. Revenue keeps climbing. Costs barely move. AWS prints money. And we'll come back to this. Amazon is currently spending that money faster than it comes in. Part of why AWS keeps compounding. Amazon stopped just renting server space and started designing the chips underneath it. Its Trainium and Graviton chips are now a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business on their own, growing at triple-digit rates, with the overwhelming majority of AWS's biggest customers already using them, which is also why Amazon's 2026 spending guidance jumped to roughly $200 billion. CEO Andy Jassy points to chips, robotics, and satellites, not just cloud computing. Amazon isn't running a cloud business anymore. It's racing to build the physical infrastructure underneath the entire AI industry, and it's using retail's cash to help pay for it. The third shift is the one most customers never notice. Amazon stopped needing to own what it sells. In 2000, Amazon opened its marketplace to outside sellers, small businesses, independent brands. Amazon doesn't buy their inventory, doesn't take the risk if a product flops. It just charges rent. Somewhere in Ohio, a small business owner makes phone chargers and lists them on Amazon. Amazon didn't build her business, but from the moment she hit publish on that listing, every rule she plays by was written by someone else. We're coming back to her. That one decision, opening the marketplace, quietly rebuilt the entire company. By 2025, third-party sellers supplied 61% of everything sold on Amazon. Most of what you scroll past and click buy on was never Amazon's to begin with. This is the moment Amazon stopped being a retailer and became something closer to a landlord. It doesn't guess what'll sell this Christmas. It doesn't sit on unsold inventory when something flops. Sellers absorb all of that risk. Amazon collects rent either way. Today, roughly 1.9 million sellers are actually active out of 9.7 million accounts ever registered. Millions of businesses tried to build something here. Most never made it past the front door. So, if the store barely breaks even and outside sellers own most of the inventory, where's the actual money? Follow it one piece at a time. Direct product sales, what Amazon calls online stores, brought in $269.3 billion. That's the biggest number on the page. It's also the slowest growing. This is the decoy. It's the number that makes Amazon look like a store. Now the parts are hiding underneath. Third-party seller fees, $172.2 billion, almost two-thirds the size of Amazon's entire product sales business, and Amazon never bought a single item of that inventory. Advertising, $68.6 billion, growing 22% a year. That's more than YouTube's entire global ad business, from a company most people have never once thought of as an advertiser. Subscriptions, mostly Prime fees, $49.6 billion, roughly the size of Nike's entire global business, generated almost entirely from people paying to make shipping feel free. Add those three together, fees, ads, subscriptions, and you get $290.4 billion, more than Amazon's own product sales. These side hustles are bigger than the store. There's one more wrinkle. Amazon books its ad and subscription revenue inside the same segments as its product sales, North America and international, which means that already thin 5.8% margin isn't purely from selling things. It's propped up by ads and Prime fees baked into the same number. Strip those out, and there's a real case the physical goods alone are barely breaking even. If that, internationalization is worse, just a 2.9% margin. Outside the US, Amazon is closer to break-even than thin. Now, remember that $34.4 billion retail profit we opened with? Here's what it's actually made of, and here's what it's up against. AWS, $128.7 billion in revenue, $45.6 billion in profit, a 35% margin against retail's 5.8%, one division, a fifth the size of the company, generating 57% of all its profit. The everything store you thought you understood. It's a rounding error sitting on top of a cloud computing giant. The genius and the trap for anyone competing with Amazon is how those fee and ad businesses are built to be almost impossible to avoid. Back to our seller in Ohio. She lists her charger, and immediately 5 other sellers show up underneath, selling the identical charger for a few cents less. Whoever wins that listing takes almost all the sales. And winning isn't really about price. It's about the buy box, the single add to cart button shown by default. Win it, you get the sales. Lose it, you're invisible, even at the same price. Amazon's algorithm favors sellers who pay for fulfillment by Amazon, FBA, handing over their storage, packing, and shipping. That single design choice is what built the $172.2 billion fee stream we just covered. And that fee stream is a toll booth with several gates in a row. A referral commission, 8% to 15% of every sale, no matter who ships it. Then per unit fulfillment fees, then monthly storage fees, then if inventory sits too long, a surcharge specifically built to make you discount, ship it out, or abandon it. Every gate is optional. In theory, skip FBA and you usually lose the buy box, which makes the whole toll booth nearly impossible to route around. Then layer on advertising. Sponsored listings sit above the organic results, often before those even load. A shopper searching phone charger already has their wallet out, so that ad slot converts far better than a random banner ad anywhere else on the internet. Analysts estimate Amazon's ad margins run 50% to 70%, some of the highest in the entire company. Our seller in Ohio now has a choice: pay for placement or watch an identical charger sit above hers forever. It's a playbook other retailers noticed working. Walmart, Target, and Instacart are all now racing to build their own version of the exact same machine. There's a darker wrinkle too. Congressional investigators and antitrust regulators in the US and EU have alleged that Amazon employees, at times, used data from sellers' own listings to spot bestsellers, then launched cheaper Amazon-branded copies, a private label version of the same charger, sold by the same company that controls the algorithm deciding whose listing gets seen at all. Amazon denies using individual seller data this way and says private label decisions rely only on aggregate, anonymized numbers. But the accusation captures something the toll booth metaphor doesn't quite reach. On Amazon, the landlord can also decide to become your competitor. Add it all up for our seller in Ohio: referral fee, fulfillment fee, and storage fee. Ad spend just to outrank the listing underneath hers. She doesn't lose money to one bad decision. She loses it a percentage point at a time. Industry trackers estimate the average FBA seller now hands over 30% to 35% of revenue in combined fees and ads before the product itself is even paid for, and that's before anyone at Amazon has decided whether to compete with her directly. Now add the newest hurdle. Amazon reports that its AI shopping assistant, Rufus, was used by more than 300 million customers in 2025 and says it helped generate nearly $12 billion in incremental sales by steering shoppers towards specific listings. That's a company-reported figure, not an independently audited one. But either way, it's one more layer sellers now have to optimize for, on top of the algorithm, the fees, and the ads. The marketplace is maturing fast. According to marketplace analytics firms that track registration data, new seller signups hit a decade low in 2025, down an estimated 44% from the 2020 peak. The same trackers estimate the top 1% of sellers now capture roughly 27% of all marketplace revenue. The easy entry era is over. Our seller in Ohio is one of the ones still standing. Barely. She hasn't quit. She also hasn't given herself a raise in 2 years. Quick recap, because everything from here depends on it. Amazon's retail store is barely profitable on its own. The real money, the fees, the ads, the subscriptions, is almost bigger than the store itself. And the fastest growing, most profitable piece of all of it is a cloud computing division most customers will never consciously touch. Now, here's the trapdoor underneath all of it. And it has nothing to do with anything you've ever bought. The engine subsidizing Amazon's thin retail margins, AWS, and the AI build-out around it just swallowed nearly all of the company's cash. Free cash flow, The money actually left over after running the business was $38.2 billion for the 12 months ending December 2024. 1 year later, $11.2 billion, a 71% collapse, in a year where operating profit hit a record $80 billion. Record profit, evaporating cash, because Amazon spent $50.7 billion more on property and equipment than the year before, mostly AI infrastructure, chips, and data centers, on its way to that roughly $200 billion spending guidance for 2026. That gap didn't close itself. Amazon started borrowing to cover it. New long-term debt jumped sharply in 2025. Part of the shortfall is cash squeezed out of thin retail margins. Part of it is borrowed money. All of it is betting the payoff arrives before the bill does. This isn't Amazon's first time here. In 2022, despite $514 billion in revenue, Amazon posted a full-year net loss. $2.7 billion in the red, driven in large part by a $12.7 billion paper loss on its Rivian stock investment. A retail network that had wildly overbuilt during the pandemic also had to shrink, cutting 18,000 jobs. A 5.8% margin isn't a cushion. It's a rounding error that one bad quarter can wipe out completely. And Amazon has already shown it can happen. And the exact cushion the company is leaning on to survive the next stretch just took a direct hit. In September 2025, Amazon agreed to pay $2.5 billion to settle an FTC lawsuit, accused of using manipulative design to enroll millions into Prime, then building a deliberately convoluted cancellation process, internally nicknamed the Iliad Flow. $1.5 billion goes back to consumers. $1 billion is a civil penalty, the largest ever imposed for that kind of violation. That's not just a headline. That's a direct hit to the credibility of the $49.6 billion subscription engine we covered a few minutes ago, the same engine holding up retail's already thin margin. Follow the chain all the way down. Less cash, more debt, a company that's been here before, and a legal settlement striking at the one subscription business propping up the weakest segment. If Amazon leans harder on retail and marketplace fees to close the gap, the tolls our seller in Ohio pays don't stay flat, they rise. So, here's the bet Amazon is making, boiled down to two futures. The optimistic case: AWS keeps growing above 20% a year, advertising keeps compounding, and the roughly $200 billion in 2026 spending eventually converts into new AI revenue the way past data center spending always has. The pessimistic case: AI spending keeps ballooning, a rival undercuts Amazon's pricing before the capital gets repaid, and free cash flow, already down 71% in the good scenario, keeps sliding towards zero. We don't have to guess which one happened first. By the time you're watching this, the first quarter of 2026 is already public record. AWS grew 28%, its fastest growth in 15 quarters. Operating income came in at $23.9 billion, beating even the top of Amazon's own guidance. On paper, this is the optimistic case, arriving early and arriving loud. But look one line further down the income statement, because this is where the entire thesis of this video happens one more time, live, in the most recent numbers available. Amazon's first quarter 2026 net income was $30.3 billion. $16.8 billion of that, more than half, wasn't from selling anything, renting anything, or running a single server. It was a paper gain on Amazon's investment stake in Anthropic, the AI company. A stock position, marked up on paper, sitting inside the same headline number investors use to judge whether the quarter was good. That's not a scandal. Amazon disclosed it plainly in the filing, but it's the same lesson this entire video has been building toward, showing up again in the newest number we have. The headline figure is never the whole mechanism underneath it. Even Amazon's best quarter in years wasn't fully what it looked like on the surface. And underneath that mechanism, completely unmoved by which segment just posted a record, a seller in Ohio is still paying the same referral fee, the same fulfillment fee, and bidding on the same ad slot she always has. Here's the lesson that should permanently change how you look at that cardboard box on your porch. Amazon was never really selling you a product. It was selling you convenience, and using that convenience as bait to build four far more profitable businesses hiding behind it. A landlord's toll on independent sellers, an advertising exchange sitting at the exact moment you're ready to buy, a subscription fee so quietly effective the government had to step in, and a cloud computing empire most of its own customers have never consciously used, one now so central to the company that even its stock market bets on AI startups can outweigh an entire quarter of operations. Our seller in Ohio never got to build the business Amazon's marketplace once promised her, but she also never had to buy a warehouse, build a website, or hire a truck. Amazon didn't fail her, and it didn't save her either. It just kept charging rent quarter after quarter, record or not, which might be the most honest one-sentence description of the whole company we found all video. The store isn't the business. The store is the traffic generator that makes the other four possible. And the moment you understand that, the real question stops being, what will Amazon sell me next? It becomes, which of Amazon's businesses is quietly funding the rest? And what happens to the box on your porch and the seller who packed it the day that stops being true?